My name is William Weber. I'm a former ATF industry operations investigator. I wanted to review a couple things about when an IOI does perform a compliance inspection. The review and the preparation he or she does before he goes to the inspection. Then I'll review a typical inspection looks like, and then we'll review the verification process and what could be a subsequent administrative action from an ATF compliance inspection. I'm recording this also with my laptop, and we're going to review a couple things. I'm going to go straight to the atf.gov website. The reason I'm doing that is because I want you to see exactly where I'm getting this information from. The information that I'm sharing with you is available online. All the information that I'm sharing with you is available online. Of course, it'll be a unique perspective from an IOI. I spent approximately 8 years as an IOI doing compliance and qualification inspections for federal explosive licensees and federal firearms licensees. This is for the Houston Field Division in Laredo and Austin, Texas. Okay, so we'll give it a start here. Let me get set up. As you can see from the video on this side, and the reason I started at this page here is, and the title is ATF launches a new era of reform. And the reason that I started here is because apparently, with all everything that's going on with ATF and all the changes that are happening, of course they would, they want to be able to say that, hey, this is the new ATF, and I think that probably in some parts that it is. But I can also tell you that in some parts it is very much the same ATF. As an example, probably some of the executive management level, perhaps the DIO and above, individuals that participated enthusiastically in the zero tolerance policy and made sure that it got implemented the way they wanted it to. They're still there. A lot of them are still there. So, and it doesn't look like that any of that level or intent to be to bring down an FFL is gone at any level. That's not my opinion anyway. But anyway, enough of that. Let me get started here. We'll look at the first one, and of course it talks about the ATF is ushering a new chapter. Rest of the paragraph. Under the new leadership, ATF has already taken significant steps, including, and I'm going to review just a couple of these, not all of them, but some that I think stand out and that are related to my video and the information I'm sharing here. So, number one is ending the enhanced regulatory enforcement policy that has targeted firearms dealers. So, the enhanced regulatory enforcement policy that they're talking about is a zero tolerance policy implemented by the Biden-Harris administration. The zero tolerance policy, and it had the 5 deadly sins that they talked about. Just so you know, the 5 deadly sins have always existed. They just weren't named the 5 deadly sins. What the zero tolerance policy did for ATF was that, and this was implemented from executive level down. I'm going to say from the DC level all the way down to the DIO level, and then on to the divisions from there and the areas. What the zero tolerance policy did was removed the IOI's autonomy. It removed the IOI's ability to say, hey, this is willful, this is not willful, which the IOIs have had since I joined in late 2015 when I first started doing inspections. So when the zero tolerance policy was implemented, we were directly told that, hey, you're no longer going to decide whether that's willful or not. Don't put anything that's related to a statement of whether it's willful or not in your inspection summary. So we were told that, and by the our DIO, our division DIO, and we really didn't have a choice. And the reason I say this is because when they say ending the enhanced regulatory enforcement policy and the zero tolerance policy, it's funny how I think that ATF is still in a position where they want to blame the boots on the ground, like the IOIs that actually do the on-site compliance inspections and the on-site qualification inspections. So make no mistake, and anybody that's a part of ATF or that was a part of ATF that's it's welcome, and come on here and chime in to any comments you want to make and contradict anything I say. You're more than welcome to it. But the IOIs, all they did was follow orders, because IOIs have, they have families and mortgages to pay, so we really didn't have a choice. They said, here, either do it like this, or there's going to be some disciplinary action, and there was disciplinary action. I think that when this thing first got implemented, we were surprised that this was being done, and just the way that it was handled, the way it was disseminated from DC, and the enthusiasm shown by the division director of industry operations at DIO level and beyond. It was just, to me, it stunned me. I was in IOI in Austin, and it's something that I didn't like. I didn't approve of it. I voiced my opinion, and of course I was dealt with, but that's another topic. Anyway, I'm here to share some information about you from an IOI's point of view. I was an IOI from 2015 through November of 2023, so it's pretty recent. Okay, let's get started. And so that enough on number one. Number two, publishing a new administrative action policy that emphasizes firearm traceability and public safety and de-emphasizes immaterial paperwork errors. I don't think that the administrative action policy that existed emphasized immaterial paperwork errors. So, and that could have been an argument at the time. What's an immaterial paperwork error? Would it be firearm information? Would it be buyer information? NICS information? And which one of those is immaterial? Is it that somebody didn't cross a T or dot an I? That's possible, but that was really never a big deal anyway. If anything, it was done for discipline, discipline meaning that you want to make sure that all the information is being checked, not a disciplinary type of activity. But I don't think that I ever issued any violations. Any of the IOIs that I work with were that I'm going to use the word petty. Now, if the same type of mistake was done 100 times, then maybe have to probably mention it and maybe issue a violation of not 100 instances, but of one violation for that mistake, maybe 3 or 4 instances, just to get the point across. Hey, you need to work on that. But anyway, that's for number two. And number three, encouraging any federal firearms licensees that had their licenses revoked or surrendered under the enhanced regulatory policy to reapply. Those applications will be judged under new administrative action policy. So my recollection of how this went down is that in June of 2021, the zero tolerance policy was, published, and in January of 2022 is when ATF started really implementing that policy. So what ATF did was they went back from the date of the publication of the zero tolerance policy, and they went back and opened up all the inspections that were closed under what could have been one of the 5 deadly sins, reopened those inspections so they could be looked at again. But this is what they did. Instead of looking at the evidence that was already there, what they did is just reopened it and automatically issued a notice of revocation. Instead of saying, hey, this is the information that we have, can you give us more explanation of why the violation occurred, even though that information already existed. And I know this because one of my inspections was reopened. I closed my inspection approximately a week and a half into July, which would have been a week and a half too late from the zero tolerance policy. I had issued a violation for what ended up being a zero tolerance policy deadly sin. At that time, I knew that it wasn't done willfully. So I only issued a violation and ended up doing an administrative action of a warning letter. So that warning letter was already issued and the inspection was already closed by the time January of 22 came about. So I can tell you that past history ATF can reopen inspections that have already been closed historically. Now, is that a common thing? No, it's not common at all. And if you don't believe me, there's Office of the OIG has oversight over ATF, has had several audits of ATF, and they know that even though ATF can reopen inspections that have been closed, it's not common to do that. Neither is the reason why they did it. Okay, on to the next one. Removing revoked FFL inspection reports from ATF public website. So I did, in the past couple of months, I did see some inspections, historical inspections that had already been closed and that they got revoked. I also saw some that were exception for the zero tolerance policy. In other words, they had a reason why the administration thought that their reason was extenuating circumstances according to the zero tolerance policy. Instituting a NICS alert policy that restricts use of NICS alerts to the federal firearms trafficking violations. Well, so as far as NICS is concerned, NICS was doing just fine before the Biden-Harris administration got there. The way that NICS was being used was, and ATF has zero to do with NICS. A background for a purchase does not go through ATF at any point in time. It goes straight to FBI. FBI makes the decision with proceed, delay, or denied. Now, the Biden-Harris administration implemented a notification act, quote unquote, NICS Denial Notification Act, something like that, in 2022, and for NICS system to notify the state of the denial. Now, normally, before this notification act, when we would arrive to an inspection to do an audit, we already had a list of NICS denials or just regular NTN numbers, called an NTN audit list that included all the denials. So the rule then, and still the rule now, is that all FFLs have to have in their possession the hard copy of the denied NICS in their hand for the last 5 years. And if they don't have it, then that's a violation. Other than that, the NTN audit list was used for the previous 60 days from the date of when the report was generated, to check for the NTN numbers being on actual hard copies when you go visit the FFL. Ideally, you want to run that NTN audit report the day before or the day of you arriving to the FFL. That way, you can have as many NTNs as possible. So, in theory, you want to see a hard copy FFL signed by the buyer with the NTN number query, with the query and date, after the signature and certification date on the 4473. So, and if all the ones that were generated according to the NTN audit list are present, then you're good to go. If one is missing, in other words, if a hard copy is missing that is supposed to have an NTN you're looking for, and you can't find the 4473, so in theory, you don't have a 4473 for the NICS query that you generated. Now, has it happened that the FFL just misplaces it somewhere? Yes. Has it also happened that because if they have an electronically generated, let's say Gun Store Master or MUNS or somebody that generates or an E4473 system that generates 4473, can they reprint? Yes, they can reprint, but the problem with that is if you reprint and you don't have their electronic signatures, then you really can't do that. I think the best thing to do is just to take care of your 4473s. But if you are actually missing one, do the very best to try to figure out, where it is or which one it is at least. I mean, at least you can have one that was a no sale maybe, after you perform the NICS and you did a no sale, maybe it's in a different pile or something, but it's in your best interest to find all of these. Excuse me, all of these that you generate, because when most of the IOIs that I work with, and myself included, I looked at everything, every single NTN number that was generated. It was my my scope of work to try to find everything possible. And if they were missing, I was well, why would you be missing in 4473? Anyway, I think that's it for. I mean, there's a lot more, but that's all I'm going to review for now. Let's go on to the IOI compliance inspection preparation. Okay, so I have a list back here which I'm referring to. If you have any comments, please put them in the video. I'll try to answer them after the video. I'll put links to all the websites that I'm using now, so you can see it in your video. Typically at the beginning of the year, Q1, October 1st of that year, you have a plan, a meeting of people that decide what your office goal is going to be. You decide which inspections are needed and which ones are if you finish these, then you can do them. What's called mandatory inspections and supplemental inspections. The mandatory is going to include explosives first, and all the ones that somewhere in higher pay grade, executive management level, have decided this will be ATF strategy to do inspections, and it usually goes by issues that FFL may have, or if they have number of traces, demand letters, or if they're having issues on there. But generally, there's already a list of FFLs that will be inspected for the year. Now, the IOI, most of the time, the IOI won't know what the whole list looks like, because they don't need to know, because you have a area supervisor that has IOIs under that. But anyway, so the list comes out. If you're October 1st, or if you're Q1, October, November, December of that year, and you're already being inspected, you're on the we need to see you list for whatever reason, but you're not supplemental, that's for sure. You're mandatory. Whether it's the 3 years is coming up, or the issues going on, something's happening. If you're explosives licensee, then for sure you're going to get inspected. It doesn't matter whether you're on the list or not. So the first thing that I used to do when I was inspecting was I run what's called an RDS. The RDS is the first 3 and the last 5 of your FFL number. The 15-digit numbers turns into 5. The first 3 and the last 5. Usually that gives us an idea. Like Texas was 574 from my area, and then the last 5, depending on what license it was, of course. So we'll run the RDS to what's called FLS for the current data, and that inspection report, or the FLS report, will give us who the RPs are, address, any LLCs, whether they have DBAs, people's contact information, address information, location of the storefront, if it's a storefront, or if it's a residence. All that information is being done. And what we do from there is we take that information and we just check it. We check all the information. We'll do background check on all the RPs. Usually big corporate ones have RPs. They have to have an RP there. It can be, the RP is just somebody designated that has control over the inventory. And there's a bigger definition to the RP. It's just somebody has control over it. Somebody that's designated to say, hey, okay, who's in charge of this license, basically. And that's who the RP is going to be. There could be more than one. Most of the time, the mid-size FFLs are just going to have 1 or 2 RPs, maybe. Okay, so we do background checks on all the responsible persons. Now, if the licensee is a sole prop, and if it's a residence and a sole prop, then the sole prop's going to, if they own the place, and they don't need a lease, obviously, because they own it. But if you're a sole prop and you're leasing, you need in your lease, you need to have some language in there that says, hey, I'm leasing this place, but I'm authorized to operate an FFL at this residence, and of course it has to be signed, dated, all that good stuff. I think I'm not sure, but I think that it's going to have to be done every year. every 3 years or every year. Make sure when you're renewing the lease, that language has to be in there, so that the dates have to be updated on the lease if the lease is redone. If you're an LLC, for sure you need to have something in your lease, because usually the LLC and the people operating the LLC are two different people. The LLC is the owner of the LLC, and then the people that are actually using the property are two different entities owned by the same company, obviously. But there needs to be something in the lease saying that they can operate, or if it's just if their own language says that okay, this is ours and we're using it for this. Anyway, there has to be some kind of language in there. We check to see if there's a change in control, if there's a sole prop switch to an LLC, or if an LLC switch to a sole prop. We need to know that. Obviously, if there's a sole prop to one LLC, then the liability changes as far as the person operating it. On the like it's supposed to say in the lease that the language in the lease is supposed to say that, hey, you can operate an FFL. If there's an HOA, there's also an issue there, or there was when I was there. I mean, they might have changed that, but there's HOA has to be able to approve, or has to have a letter approving that you can operate an FFL. I mean, not everybody is so welcoming to somebody operating an FFL, but I mean, I guess some are. Who knows? We also need to know, ATF also need to know that if it was a school zone, because the way you operate changes. I think it's 1,000 feet from a school. You need to be able to any firearm movement is going to have to be in a locked box, and there's some other details on there also. But just be aware that if you're in a school zone, that makes a difference. And if you were there first and the school shows up, too bad. You're in a school zone, and the school doesn't yield to you. You yield to the school. Okay, so we start checking that information, make sure it's still good to go, make sure there aren't any anomalies in that. The next thing we'll check is sometimes I will take the original application with me for the qualification inspection. The reason I do that is because see what's changed from the original application until the compliance inspection. I mean, it could be from a qualification inspection, which would be part of the application process, to the compliance inspection date. It could be 1 year or 5 or 10. There's some FFLs out there that I ran into that hadn't been inspected in 15 years, which is ridiculous. But anyway, there's a lot of changes that happen in 15 years, especially if you're somebody that has a lot of high turnover on your employees, like pawn shops, for example, and turnover for people that have access to firearms is high. So next thing I may look at, or I did look at, is I'll take the results of the previous inspection, if there was one, and of course the recommendation, and what the size of the inventory looked like, to give me an idea of what this FFL that I was going to inspect, how long it might take, or what I need to be prepared for if there's any NFA or stuff like that. There's pawn shops also that have NFA, so it's not so unheard of that that you would need to know what you're going to run into when you're doing an inspection on not just residence or a storefront, but also a pawn shop. So another item that we would prepare is what's called, of course, discussed that earlier, is the NTN audit list, the HREX list. So you have to recall that when you're performing a NICS check, whether it's over the phone or whether it's e-NICS, the instant that you do the query, or the instant that you call, and the instant that you that they respond and that you actually retrieve the response, that's recorded. Those times are recorded by down to the second. So when in that audit, in the NTN audit list, I can see that when it was queried, when NICS responded, and when the FFL actually retrieved the response. And the reason that helps me is if, let me give you an example. If I see that the firearm was transferred at a certain time of the day, if you're using an example, and I don't have anything to do with these people, but a gun store master, or even even older DOS systems will show you the exact date and time of transactions. So if I can pull a date of when this was actually transferred or when it was paid for, and that date and time precedes the actual retrieval time, then that's transferring before receiving a response, and that's also a violation. Now, if something like that done willfully, I mean, if your process doesn't include checking this first before you transfer it, or you just assume it's going to get preceded, which I would stay away from doing that, then you could get yourself in trouble. But I have seen that, but I just haven't seen it very often. But it does happen. It happens more often due to an error. You're looking at the wrong one, and you assume that you've gotten a response on one. It could be same name, and you transfer one and you haven't gotten a response yet. And that's other than taking that NTN list and looking for all the NICS queries on hard copies and looking for all the denied NTN numbers. That's really all I would use that for, other than putting a time and date on transactions for these transfers. While I'm at it, one of the things that really stood out for me, I would find, one of the worst things you want to find is that a NICS that was denied was ended up being a firearm transfer on 4473, and there's several reasons for that to happen. And it's just most of the time it's just being careless, and not checking names, not checking NTN numbers. They're similar numbers or similar names, or you're just not paying attention, or you get a response that's denied and over the phone, and you don't write it down on the 4473, another person transfers it. But most of the time, I would say 80% of the time that I found a firearm that was transferred, that had been a NICS denied transfer, was one that had actually been NICS denied and they just missed it. When the transfer occurred, the person transferring it was unaware that NICS had been denied. So, that goes to show you, pay attention to stuff like that. So enough on the NTN audit list. Next thing I'm going to check would be the AFMR. If you're an 07, if you're a manufacturer, I'll see if you have your AFMR. AFMR is your manufacturer statement for due April the 1st for the previous year, every year. If you haven't manufactured anything, of course you put zeros, you still have to submit the report. Another thing I would check I would take with me is a multiple report. Multiple rifles, if you're a border state, and multiple handgun sales forms. Had a list of all that historical for. Actually, I think I could actually pick the dates, but I usually do about 12 months. The intent for the IOI when they went to do the inspection is to do the previous 12 months. Now, that's not in stone. If you start running into issues, you start finding problems that they make you look further back. That has happened. I've gone back up to 2 years because of the stuff that I would find. Another thing, and I mentioned it before, is that I would run from NFA. I would see what inventory this licensee had, NFA inventory. That way, when I got there, I would at least have an idea of what inventory this NFA. If there's none there, and I'm expecting to see suppressors, and there's none. There's either maybe I have some 4473s or something to make up for it, which that does happen. And the next thing we try to find out is FFL hours of operation. This is where your application comes in, or your posted hours, which you can change. We can talk to FLS after the qualification inspection. If you decide later on you want to change your hours, you just change your hours. But FLS would reflect that when I ran the report for that licensee.